My name is Mia Lawson, and today I'm going to tell you a story that changed everything for me. A week before my son Noah's graduation, my parents said, "You can't celebrate your sister's kids might not feel special enough." That night, I packed our bags and walked out of their house for good. A year later, their golden grandkids saw how happy Noah was, and my sister's jealous meltdown shattered the family's perfect image. Have you ever been told to hide your joy just to protect someone else's feelings? Tell me, where are you watching this story from? I would love to hear your story. I still remember that afternoon like it was burned into my skin, the Texas sun blazing down as if the whole sky was melting. I had just returned from the print shop, holding a brand new yard sign that read, "Congrats Noah, class of 2025, UT bound. I'm in." It was just a simple plastic board, but to me, it carried the weight of an entire journey. After 7 years of raising my son alone, I had never once thrown a real celebration just for him. Today, I wanted to change that. A small backyard party, a few BBQ dishes, close friends, and a sheet cake that said, "We're proud of you, Noah." I opened the door to my parents' house in Round Rock, the place Noah and I had been staying ever since my divorce. The familiar smell of coffee mingled with the lavender room spray my mom loved because it made everything feel peaceful and proper. Noah was sitting at the dining table with his laptop open, wearing the semi-formal navy blue graduation shirt I'd ordered online. When he looked up, a small smile spread across his face. "Mom, the sign looks awesome," he said. "We should put it right by the fence near the oak tree." I nodded, my heart lightening just a little. But that moment didn't last. I had barely set the yard sign down on the table when my mother Linda walked in from the kitchen, followed by my father, Mark, and my sister, Vanessa, who was holding her little boy, Jax. My mother's face was tight, as if I'd just done something terribly wrong. "Mia," she began, trying to sound calm. "Your father and I need to talk to you before you do anything else." I looked at them, puzzled, but sat down anyway. My dad clasped his hands together and got straight to the point. "We've talked it over with Vanessa," he said. "This year, there won't be any graduation party for Noah." I thought I misheard him. "No, what?" He nodded firmly. "No signs, no party, no social media posts. Vanessa's kids are at a sensitive age. They'd feel hurt if Noah gets a big celebration." I went completely still. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the ticking clock and the faint sound of cars passing outside. Then I managed to ask, my voice hoarse, "You're serious? My son worked 4 years without getting a single B, earned a scholarship to UT, and you're worried 2 kids ages 9 and 12 will feel less special." Vanessa stepped in, her voice soft, almost rehearsed. "Mia, don't take it the wrong way. No one's denying how smart Noah is, but some things need balance. My boys just lost their spots on the sports team, and they're feeling down. If the whole family starts seeing Noah's pictures everywhere, I'm afraid it'll hurt them more." I turned to my mother. She didn't say a word. She just set her coffee cup down gently, her eyes avoiding mine. My mind exploded. All I could think about were the countless nights Noah stayed up late studying programming, the weekends he turned down invitations just to finish his science projects. I remembered the day he got his scholarship letter, how he hugged me, tears running down his face, and whispered, "Mom, I did it." And now, because of someone else's feelings, my son wasn't allowed to celebrate his own achievement? I tried to keep my voice steady. "We're not talking about a big party," I said slowly. "Just a small open house. A few friends, some cake, a banner, that's all. Is that really too much to ask?" My mother replied faster than I expected. "No, Mia. It'll cause division. You know how sensitive Vanessa can be." Vanessa folded her arms and tilted her head slightly, as if she were lecturing a child. "Noah's achievements speak for themselves. He doesn't need to show off. The more humble you are, the more people respect you." That line was gasoline on fire. I let out a quiet laugh, though my voice trembled. "Interesting. You're talking about humility, yet your daughter just had her birthday at the Marriott with a live band and a 3-tier cake." Vanessa shrugged. "That's different. That was a birthday, not some event to flaunt accomplishments. I turned toward Noah. He was still sitting there, hands folded tightly, staring down at the table in silence. I saw his lips pressed together, trying hard not to cry. My heart cracked. In that moment, I realized if I stayed silent, Noah would grow up like me, always shrinking himself, always giving up the right to feel special. So I stood up, picked up the yard sign, and said quietly, "All right, I understand. No party, no banner, and no staying here either." The room froze. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by that?" I looked straight at my mother. "Tonight, Noah and I are moving out. I won't let my son live in a house where being celebrated is treated like a shameful act." My father looked like he was about to say something, but stopped when he saw my face. I wasn't angry anymore. Just exhausted down to my bones. Noah stood up, packed his laptop into his backpack, and didn't say a word. I saw the redness in his eyes, the light catching in them like glass about to break. I wanted to hug him, but I knew this wasn't the time. He needed to see his mother strong. I turned back to my parents. "Don't worry," I said softly. "You won't have to be bothered by us anymore." That night, the rain finally came. Summer rain in Texas never lasts long, but when it comes, it falls as if the sky itself is breaking open. Noah and I barely spoke as we packed our things. The upstairs room we'd lived in for the past 2 years looked like a silent battlefield, scholarship posters peeling from the walls, the graduation gowns still hanging on the door, and a small picture frame of the two of us on the day Noah was honored at school. I wrapped that frame in my jacket and placed it gently inside the suitcase. Noah sat on the bed, carefully folding his clothes, glancing around as if trying to memorize every detail one last time. I could see he was trying hard to keep his emotions from overtaking his reason. "Mom," he asked softly, "should we keep the guest sign in book for the graduation party?" I shook my head slowly. "Keep it. Someday, we'll actually use it." He nodded, lips pressed together, and went back to folding. When I carried the suitcase down the stairs, my mother was standing by the kitchen door. She didn't say a word. Her eyes followed me somewhere between shock and helplessness. My father sat in the living room, the TV still tuned to CNN, volume low. I placed the house key on the wooden table, the same key I used every day after work. "I'll leave this here," I said quietly. "Thank you for letting us stay." The words were simple, but they made the whole room feel unbearably still. I could hear the clock ticking, second by second. Dad just nodded, eyes still fixed on the screen. Vanessa didn't show up, but my phone kept buzzing. Her messages flashed one after another. "Mia, what are you doing? Don't make this dramatic. Stay." Mom and Dad didn't mean it. I didn't reply. I'd spent my whole youth explaining, apologizing, shrinking myself just to make them understand, and all it ever earned me was silence that slowly eroded my soul. This time, I would choose silence for myself, silence that walks away. I opened the back door. The rain hit the porch roof hard, sounding like 1,000 tiny drums. My old SUV sat at the end of the driveway. Noah went ahead, pulling his hoodie up over his head. The backyard lights cast our reflections on the wet pavement, distorted but unmistakably real. When I turned back one last time, my mother was still standing there, a dish towel in her hands. She didn't move closer, she didn't say goodbye. Out by the car, Noah opened the trunk, placed the suitcase inside, then looked at me. "Where are we going to stay tonight, Mom?" I gave him a tired smile. "I'll figure something out, but one thing's for sure, it won't be here." Then, in my mind, I saw the kind face of Mrs. Wilson, our elderly neighbor 2 houses down. She'd once told me that if I ever needed a temporary place to stay, I could ask her. Her late husband had built a small studio attached to their garage that no one used anymore. I checked my watch. It was almost 10 p.m. I quickly typed a message. "Mrs. Wilson, I'm so sorry to text this late. Noah and I need a place to stay tonight. I'll pay rent, of course." 10 minutes later, Mrs. Wilson called back. Her voice was gentle and warm, like a cup of tea on a tired evening. You don't need to pay anything, Mia, she said softly. The key's in the mailbox. The studio's clean, there's a bed and a small kitchen. Don't worry, dear. I couldn't hold back my tears. All I managed to say was, thank you. Mrs. Wilson's studio sat just beyond a white picket fence barely 100 meters from my parents' house, yet it felt like a different world entirely. When I opened the door, the air smelled of old wood and fresh paint, a strangely comforting mix. Inside, there was a single bed, a folding table, and a small fridge. Noah set the suitcase in the corner and looked around. It's small, he said, but it already feels warmer than that house ever did. I smiled. Even though my hands were trembling, I had no idea what tomorrow would bring. I took out my laptop to deal with a few urgent things, separating my phone line from the family plan under my father's name, contacting the auto insurance company to register an independent policy, updating our mailing address with USPS. Each task felt like cutting one more thread that had bound me for years. My bank balance was low enough to make my stomach tighten, but strangely, my heart was calm. Beside me, Noah was typing something on his phone. What are you doing, honey? I asked. He looked up. I'm texting Coach Ramirez. I want to see if I can help in the summer lab. If they pay, I can help with rent. I turned to him, placed a hand on his shoulder. No, Noah, your only job right now is to be happy. I'll handle the money. A little while later, there was a knock on the door. It was Mrs. Wilson, wrapped in a raincoat, holding a cardboard box and a small ring of keys. I brought a few things for you too, she said, some cups, towels, and a bit of food, and here this is for the garage and the side gate. I started to protest, but she waved her hand. Don't say no, everyone needs to be reminded, at least once in their life, that they're not alone. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Thank you, truly. When she left, I closed the door and turned on the little desk lamp. Noah had already fallen asleep on the chair, his hoodie pulled over his head. I sat there for a long time, just watching him, listening as the rain softened outside until only the steady rhythm of drops on the tin roof remained. My mind drifted to tomorrow, to the paperwork waiting, to the small savings that would soon be spent on our first real apartment. But in the middle of all that uncertainty, something inside me burned bright and steady, a silent vow, firm as the storm that had just passed. No one, not family, not friends, not anyone, would ever again make my son feel less special. I stood up, pulled Noah's framed graduation photo from the suitcase, and placed it on the old wooden table. The warm light glowed across his face, in the picture bright eyes, a shy smile, and quiet pride. I touched the glass gently and whispered, "From now on, it's just us, and this time, we'll decide what special really means." That night, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan hummed softly above me, its blades spinning in slow circles against the old wooden ceiling, the dim yellow light casting flickers across the wall. Noah slept peacefully in the corner, his breathing steady, his face finally relaxed. But I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying like an old film reel running backward. The rain had stopped outside, but somehow, its fading rhythm pulled up every memory I had buried deep, all the little signs I had chosen to ignore for years, convincing myself they were just different kinds of love from my parents. But they weren't. They were patterns, clear, consistent patterns. Vanessa was allowed to shine, and I was expected to support. I remembered my 10th birthday. We celebrated in the backyard, balloons everywhere, and a cat-shaped cake I had spent a month designing in my sketchbook. I loved cats back then. That morning, I wore a pink dress my mother had called a little too bright, but fine, it's your birthday. When it came time to cut the cake, Vanessa, who was 12 then, started pouting because she didn't get to pick the opening song. My parents exchanged a look, and then my mother said casually, "Mia, sweetheart, why don't you let Vanessa blow out the candles with you? It'll be more fun that way. She's your sister, after all." I still remember the sting of disappointment that caught in my throat, but I nodded anyway because my mother smiled and said, "Good girl." That photo still sits in the family album, Vanessa in the center, arm raised high with the candle, while I stand off to the side, my crooked smile half cut from the frame. Years later, the same story kept repeating, just with new settings. When I was in 8th grade, our school hosted an award ceremony for top science students. I'd been chosen to present my project on renewable energy, something I was so proud of I could barely sleep the night before. That morning, as I was ironing my shirt, my mother called from downstairs. "Nia, remember to bake those cookies for tonight. The relatives from Mark's side are coming for dinner with Vanessa." I told her I had to leave early for school. She frowned. "It's just a few cookies, Mia. You make them every year, no one else does them right." So I spent 2 hours in the kitchen. By the time I left, I was nearly late. When I finally stepped onto the stage, my hair still carried the scent of vanilla, and there were traces of butter on my fingers. My parents didn't come. They were at home, entertaining relatives. When I got back, Vanessa was surrounded by everyone, excitedly announcing she'd been chosen as cheer captain for her high school team. My mother beamed. "My talented eldest daughter," she said proudly. And me? I just stood in the kitchen doorway, still holding my certificate, invisible in plain sight. During my college years, I thought things would finally be different. But in truth, the pattern only went deeper. I worked part-time at a cafe near the UT Austin campus, saving every dollar I could for a summer internship at a data company. I remember every penny I managed to set aside $4,000 after 2 years of night shifts. One evening, my mother called. Her voice was soft, almost tender, that familiar tone she used whenever she was about to ask for something. "Mia," she began. "Vanessa has an opportunity to study abroad in Paris this summer. She really wants to go, but she's short on money. Your father and I are helping, but we're still about 4,000 short. Could you lend her your savings for now? We'll pay you back as soon as we can." I was silent for a long time. Paris, the city I had dreamed of since I was a little girl, a place I had only ever seen in pictures. But I didn't want to be called selfish, so I said quietly, "All right, if it's just temporary." My mother thanked me and added a line that stung like a paper cut. "You're so different from Vanessa, always thinking of others first." They never paid me back. When I asked months later, my mother brushed it off. "Oh, Vanessa's still job hunting. She'll pay you when things settle." Dad. Years passed, I graduated, changed jobs, became a mother. That conversation was buried under the dust of time. But every time Vanessa mentioned her amazing summer in Paris, it felt like someone tightening a fist around my chest. It wasn't about the money. It was about the realization that I had been raised to believe sacrifice was a virtue until I learned it's only a virtue for those benefiting from it. I sat up in bed and looked at Noah sleeping. The yellow light spilled across his face, and for a fleeting second, I saw my younger self in him, hopeful, eager to please. That's when I finally understood. What I had endured all my life wasn't just favoritism. It was emotional conditioning, a generational pattern that had been handed down like a family heirloom. My mother once told me she'd grown up in the shadow of her perfect older sister. She never dared to rebel, so she recreated that same dynamic with us, as if only one child was allowed to shine while the other existed to keep the peace. And in doing so, she preserved what she believed was order. I wondered how long I had been defined by that role. From childhood to motherhood, I had always been the one cleaning up behind someone else's spotlight, the writer of congratulatory messages, the planner of parties, the one who stepped aside for others to be seen. And in the end, I was loved less, not because I failed to make them proud, but because my pride had always been built on self-erasure. Outside, the night hummed with the faint chorus of crickets, blending with the distant sound of cars on the highway. I quietly got up, opened the closet, and pulled out a small notebook I'd carried with me since college, the same one where I used to record every dollar I saved, every dream I had put on hold. Between its worn pages, I found a line I'd written when I was 20. "One day, I'll live for myself, not for anyone else's feelings." I let out a soft laugh. Maybe today was finally that day. I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and lay down beside Noah, my hand resting gently on his hair. In that still moment, I could almost hear my younger self speaking from somewhere far away. I've always been the one standing in the shadows so others could shine. But this time, I'll step into the light not for praise, but so my son will know that his light belongs to him, and no one has the right to dim it. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the small studio window, scattering patches of gold across the ceiling. The faint smell of fresh paint mingled with the aroma of coffee brewing in the little machine Mrs. Wilson had lent me. I sat at the old wooden table, opened my laptop, and began making a list of everything I needed to do, feeling both terrified and free at the same time. After years of living under my parents' roof, I had never truly started from zero before. And yet, for the first time, it all felt like it belonged to me. Noah stirred awake, his hair messy, a blanket draped over his shoulders. "Mom," he said sleepily, "I had a dream we had our own house, with a garden, and a wooden sign with our names on it." I laughed. "Maybe one day. But first, we need electricity, water, and internet." He blinked. "I thought those came automatically." I shook my head and opened the Austin Utilities website. "Not anymore. At Grandma and Grandpa's, sure. But now, we do it ourselves. Want to learn how to set it up with me?" That morning, we made a long checklist. Call the electric company, open a new water account, fill out the USPS change of address form, and email the car insurance provider to separate from the family plan under my father's name. I didn't expect these tiny, practical tasks to move me the way they did. When the customer service representative asked, "Whose name would you like listed as the account holder?" I answered, slow and steady, "Mine. Mia Lawson." That single sentence felt like a declaration of independence. By noon, we drove to the nearby Walmart for groceries. I bought just the basics: bread, eggs, cheese, lettuce, and a few cheap taco shells. Noah grinned as we unpacked. "If this little studio starts smelling like tacos, it's officially home." I laughed. "Home isn't about size, sweetheart. It's the place where no one makes you shrink yourself." We sat on the floor, sharing warm tacos from their plastic box, the sunlight spilling across the tiles. Noah started telling me stories about school, his voice lighter than it had been in months. And for the first time in a long time, I heard my son laugh freely, without hesitation. That afternoon, I stopped by the DMV to update the address on my driver's license. The waiting room was packed, the air thick with the smell of coffee and sweat, flickering under pale fluorescent lights. A middle-aged black woman sitting next to me glanced over and asked, "Moving somewhere new?" I nodded. "Yeah, starting over." She smiled knowingly. "Me too. Sometimes leaving is the only way to remember who you are." Her words stayed with me for the rest of the afternoon, echoing quietly in my chest. That evening, as I opened my laptop to work on a freelance project, Noah's phone rang. I heard his soft, polite voice. "Yes, sir, I'd love to. Thank you so much, I'll do my best." When he hung up, his eyes were glowing. "Coach Ramirez just called," he said, breathless. "The school's STEM program is looking for students to help teach kids at the church summer camp. I'll be showing them how to build and program small robots. If I do well, he'll write me a recommendation for my freshman scholarship." I couldn't speak for a moment. My throat tightened. "You see?" I finally whispered. "Everything's starting again." Noah nodded, his smile blooming like sunlight. Later that night, I received a series of emails confirmations for electricity, water, and internet service. The phrase "service activated" appeared on my screen at the same time as another notification. Auto policy successfully separated. I stared at the screen and smiled to myself. Relief washed over me, slow and steady, like I had just cut the last invisible thread that had kept me tied down for years. Mrs. Wilson stopped by again, bringing a blanket and a few small potted plants. "Looks like you two are settling in," she said warmly. "Thank you," I said, and she placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "When your heart feels light," she said, "your home will always feel warm. Don't be afraid to begin again." I nodded, and for the first time, I truly believed her. A few days later, Noah began teaching the kids at the church program. When I came to pick him up after his first session, I heard laughter echoing from the lab, bright, unguarded laughter. Through the window, I saw him leaning over a table, helping a little boy connect LED wires. When the current flows the right way, the light turns on, he explained. If it doesn't, it goes dark, but you can always try again as many times as it takes. I stood at the doorway, listening to that sentence, and I felt tears sting my eyes. Because in that moment, it wasn't just a lesson in circuits, it was the story of our lives. On the drive home, Noah rolled down the window, letting the warm Texas wind toss his hair. "Mom," he said, grinning. "Today felt really good. Like I finally did something that mattered." I reached over, squeezed his hand, and said, "You've always mattered, sweetheart. They just never chose to see it before." He smiled, his eyes shining in the golden Texas sunset, a soft, steady light, not dazzling but enduring. That night, I inflated the air mattress, spread clean sheets over it, and lay down listening to the sound of crickets outside the window. I thought about all the small things I'd done over the past few days, setting up the Wi-Fi, paying bills, signing my own name on a lease. None of it was grand, but each tiny act was a step forward on a path I had never dared to walk before. The quiet, unglamorous, utterly sacred path of freedom. When Noah turned off the light, I looked at him one last time before sleep. He rolled onto his side and whispered, "Mom, I think this is the first time I've ever seen you really happy." I smiled softly. "Maybe it is, because for the first time, I'm living my own way." Then I pulled the blanket over us and listened to his heartbeat blending with the rhythm of the rain outside. Sleep came to me warm and light, like a promise. From now on, no one would ever make us feel small in our own lives again. For 3 days after moving into the studio, I thought the storm had passed. But as my mother used to say when I was little, family storms never truly end. They just quiet down long enough to gather power for the next strike. And this time, the lightning didn't come through shouting, it came through text messages. That morning, after finishing my shift at the logistics company, I was waiting for Noah outside his class when my phone started buzzing nonstop. The screen lit up with a group chat, Family Lawson and Reed. The name alone felt ironic. The first message was from Vanessa. "So embarrassing. You just left in the middle of the night without thinking about how Mom and Dad would feel." Then came my mother's message. "Mia, you've hurt us deeply. We were only trying to keep peace in the family." Ah. And finally my father, who almost never texted, added, "Your attitude is ungrateful. Noah doesn't need a party to be successful." I read each message, feeling a cold wave crawl down my spine. Every word sliced at the thin layer of trust I still held onto. Just then, Noah came out of class, smiling brightly, eager to tell me about his first tutoring session. I quickly locked my screen, forcing a smile so he wouldn't notice the ache behind my eyes. That evening, after Noah went to bed, I opened the chat again. More messages had piled up. Vanessa had sent a screenshot of an Instagram post, a photo of Noah and his friends in the studio, pizza boxes on the floor, smiles wide and carefree. The caption read simply, "Proud of my boy, new beginnings." Vanessa's message underneath said, "Unbelievable. Barely moved out and already showing off?" I clenched my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. There was nothing in that photo, just a 17-year-old boy, happy to be laughing with his friends. But to them, it was proof of the crime they'd always accused me of, wanting attention, daring to be different. I didn't reply. Instead, I quietly took screenshots of every message and saved them in a folder. Not for revenge, but as a reminder for the next time my heart wavered. I'd open those images and remember exactly why we left. Quietly, I went through each account one by one. First was the cell plan still under my father's name. I logged in, took a deep breath, and submitted the request to remove my number from the primary account. When the confirmation email appeared, my heart started pounding. It felt like the last chain was finally coming loose. Next was Spotify families still showing admin, Vanessa Reed. I clicked leave plan. Then Amazon household where we'd all shared one Prime account. I pressed remove myself. Each click was light, barely a tap on the keyboard, yet it carried the weight of years of learning how to let go. That evening, while Noah was preparing his STEM lesson plans for the kids, my phone buzzed again. A private message from Vanessa. You think you're better than everyone now? Don't forget who gave you a place to stay for 2 years after your divorce. I stared at the message for a moment, exhaled slowly, and typed back. Thank you for what you did. And thank you for reminding me that kindness should never come with conditions. Then I turned off notifications for the family chat permanently. The screen went quiet, and for the first time, I felt like I had full control of my own space. But as the silence settled, reality crept in. Mrs. Wilson's studio was only temporary. I needed something more permanent somewhere closer to Noah's school. After days of searching, I found a small duplex in Pflugerville. The rent was fair, but the landlord required a 2-month deposit, nearly $3,000. My account held barely half of that. To make matters worse, my old SUV had started acting up. The check engine light had been glowing all week, and the garage I trusted was near my parents' neighborhood, the one place I wasn't ready to go back to. One evening at work, I mentioned it briefly to Ethan, a teammate from the data department. He was from Chicago, straightforward, practical, but kind in the quiet way that people rarely are. Your car's making noise? He asked when he noticed I'd arrived late. I nodded. Yeah, the garage I used to go to is too far now, and honestly, I don't want to drive through that area again. Ethan was silent for a moment, then said, I know a place. My buddy's the lead mechanic at Riverside Auto. They're honest, won't overcharge you. I'll give him a call. Tim. I thanked him, assuming it was just something people say to be polite. But the next afternoon, I got a text. Appointment set for Saturday morning. Tell them Ethan sent you, they'll waive the inspection fee. I stared at the message, my chest tightening with emotion. In a world where my family used help as a tool for control, a simple act of kindness like that felt almost sacred. That Saturday, I drove to the shop. The mechanic, a man named Carlos, about my father's age, greeted me with a warm smile. Ethan told me to treat your car like family, he said. Your spark plugs are worn, and the engine's misfiring. I'll take care of it, don't worry, I'll give you the fair rate. When I left the garage, the SUV purred softly, running smoother than it had in years. The feeling wasn't just about a repaired engine. It was the quiet realization that, slowly but surely, my life was starting to run smoothly again, too. That night, I sat in front of my laptop, scrolling through every message in the family group chat. I didn't delete them. Instead, I created a folder and named it Boundaries. It felt like carefully sorting through shards of the past, not to hold on to resentment, but to have proof that I had survived. Noah walked out of his room holding a small robot in his hands. Mom, he said, I think I want to post a tutorial video for the kids. Coach Ramirez said if I share how I built this, it might help other students too. I looked up at him and smiled. Go ahead, honey. You have every right to share what makes you proud. As he set up his camera, I watched his shadow move under the lamplight, and something inside me twisted, equal parts pride and ache. Because I knew, somewhere out there, Vanessa would eventually see this video and call it showing off. But this time, I wasn't afraid. If being happy, if daring to shine, was considered a sin in my family, then I was willing to sin forever. I closed my laptop, opened my small budgeting notebook, and wrote the first line on a fresh page. Freedom has a price, but this time, I'll pay it with myself, no bargaining. A month passed since the day I turned off the family chat notifications. Life was slowly finding its rhythm again. It wasn't stable yet, but every morning when I woke up, my chest felt a little lighter. Noah still went to the church every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon to mentor the kids in the STEM group. After work, I'd pick him up and watch through the classroom window, seeing him laugh and talk animatedly among the students, his face glowing with purpose. It was a smile I hadn't seen in almost a year, the kind that comes from knowing you finally belong somewhere. One Thursday afternoon, as I was leaving the office, my phone rang. It was Noah, his voice trembling with excitement. "Mom, I got it. The City STEM Foundation just awarded me a partial scholarship. Coach Ramirez told me, and he also asked if I'd like to be a robotics teaching assistant for the summer high school program." I pulled my car over, heart pounding. Tears blurred my vision, but I couldn't stop smiling. "Are you serious?" "It's true. They'll even pay me hourly, Mom. I can help with the rent." I laughed through my tears, not because of the money, but because, for the first time in years, life felt fair. That evening, I bought 2 ice creams, and Noah and I sat on the front steps of the studio, watching the sunset turn the sky gold. He spoke with the kind of excitement only teenagers have, pure, unfiltered joy. "Coach Ramirez told me," he said, "you don't just work hard for grades, you believe that knowledge can change people." "How long?" I looked at him, the fading sunlight glinting in his eyes. "He's right," I said softly. "You're doing what most adults forget: sharing instead of proving." A week later, Noah posted his first video, a simple tutorial on building a basic circuit using recycled materials. He recorded it on his old phone, but his calm voice and clear explanations drew people in. Within days, comments flooded in. "This kid explains better than my teacher. I wish my son had someone like him to learn from." The church's page reposted it. Then the school's parent group shared it. Soon, a few large TikTok accounts picked it up. In just 3 days, the video hit over 150,000 views. Noah looked at the analytics, his eyes sparkling. "I didn't think people would be this excited to learn coding, Mom." I reached out, ruffling his hair. "You're not just teaching code, sweetheart. You're teaching confidence, something it took me a lifetime to learn again." We had no idea that somewhere out there, 2 young eyes were watching Noah's video, Vanessa's children, Ava and Jax. One evening, while I was reviewing some reports, Noah looked up from his phone and said, "Mom, Ava just followed me on Instagram, and Jax too." I looked up. "Those 2? He nodded. "Yeah, probably secretly. My account's public." I was quiet for a moment. The feeling that rose in me was complicated, a mix of surprise and quiet sadness. After all, they were still my niece and nephew, Noah's cousins. "Let it be," I said finally. "Don't block them, don't respond, just let things happen naturally." A few days later, Noah received a private message from Ava. "Hi, Noah, I'm sorry if I ever said mean things before. I saw your programming video, it's really cool. I want to learn that too, but my mom said I don't need to. Can you teach me?" Noah read the message, then handed me his phone, his expression uncertain. I read every word, and my heart grew heavy. I understood Ava, a 12-year-old girl caught between a curiosity to learn and a mother who wanted to control what she felt. "What do you want to do?" I asked. He hesitated. "I want to help her, but I don't want her mom to get mad." I nodded, thinking for a moment. "Then do it in a public space at the church group. If everyone can join, no one can accuse you of anything." Noah agreed. The next week, Ava showed up quietly at the STEM class. Noah knelt beside her, showing how to code a small robot to follow a drawn path using sensors. Ava laughed, her face lighting up so brightly that I had to turn away for a moment, afraid I might cry. She looked up at him and whispered, "I thought you'd be sad, because Grandma and Grandpa don't talk to you anymore. But you look really happy." Noah smiled gently. "That's because I have Mom. And all the kids here." That night, I checked Instagram and saw Ava's comment under Noah's video. "My big brother is the best teacher in the world." It disappeared a few hours later, no doubt Vanessa had seen it. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that the first seed had sprouted, the seed of truth. The golden grandchildren were beginning to see who was truly happy, and it wasn't the ones posing under party lights, but the ones who learned to treat others kindly. In the days that followed, life began to shift again. One morning, my manager called me into his office. I assumed it was another routine check-in, but when he placed an envelope on the table, I froze. "Mia," he said with a smile. "We've been impressed by your work. Starting next month, you'll be promoted to Senior Data Analyst. The pay will increase accordingly." For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. After years of working quietly, being overlooked on projects because I was a single mother, I was finally being seen. When I walked out to the parking lot, I wanted to cry. Not because of the money, though it was enough for the deposit on a new apartment, but because for the first time, I felt valued. Like Noah, I was learning to believe again that I deserved good things. That night, Noah and I sat on the floor, laptop open, scrolling through listings. When we found a small duplex in Pflugerville with a lavender-lined porch, Noah's eyes lit up. "Mom, the upstairs unit has an extra room, we could rent it out." I laughed. "You're already reading contracts, huh?" I submitted the application, and 2 days later, the landlord called. "I like your profile, Mia," she said. "You and your son seem like responsible people." When I signed the lease, my hands trembled slightly. It wasn't just a rental agreement. It was the first official document of our new life. The moment freedom finally had an address. That weekend afternoon, as we carried a few boxes into the new duplex, our next-door neighbor, a gray-haired woman in her late 50s, walked over with a warm smile. She held a tray of muffins and said, "Welcome to the neighborhood. It's quiet here, and lots of the local kids are into robotics. Your boy's going to fit right in." I thanked her and took a bite. The sweet, nutty flavor spread across my tongue, and for a fleeting moment, my mind flashed back to the old house, the stiff dinners, the lectures about humility and sacrifice. Then I looked over at Noah, who was reassembling a bookshelf, laughing when a box of LED strips spilled across the floor. And in that moment, I understood something simple and profound. Every ounce of pain we had endured was just a down payment on today, the day we finally started living. That evening, I opened the upstairs window. The breeze carried the soft scent of lavender from the porch. Noah was on the sofa, replaying his latest video. I sat beside him and said quietly, "You know, sometimes life doesn't need us to take revenge. It finds its own way to balance things out." Noah smiled and nodded. "Like, we pay in sadness, and life gives us happiness in return?" I smiled back at him, the teenage boy who once sat silent at family dinners now standing tall in his own light. "Exactly," I said. "And I think this is just the beginning." Peace lasted for about 2 months until the next wave came. And this time, it didn't arrive as angry messages or accusations. It came disguised as kindness. One Friday afternoon, I had just finished a virtual meeting at work when my phone rang. It was my mother. I hesitated before answering. Her voice was soft as always, every word carefully chosen, the kind of tone meant to make me lower my guard. "Mia, sweetheart," she began, "your father and I have been thinking, maybe it's time to make peace." I stayed silent, waiting. She continued quickly, as if afraid I might hang up. "Your father and Vanessa talked, and we thought this year, instead of everyone doing their own thing, we could host a joint graduation party for all the kids, you know, to keep things fair. To remind them we're still one family." My stomach tightened. "A joint party?" I repeated. "Yes, for Noah, Ava, and Jax. Each of them has something to celebrate, so we'll honor them all together. That way no one feels left out. What do you think?" I could hear the real message behind her words. In my family, fairness had always meant everyone must shrink until the favorite feels comfortable again. So I asked carefully, "Who's organizing this party?" "Vanessa and your father will take care of everything. You just have to show up. We'll do it at the old house, the backyard's still big enough. Just bring Noah." Her tone was gentle, but I could hear the choreography beneath it. Another attempt to fold my son's success into a collective celebration, to blur his light until it no longer stood out. I exhaled slowly. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Noah doesn't need a joint party. I'm going to host something separate, a small gratitude picnic, just to thank the people who've truly supported him." There was silence on the other end. Then she gave a faint, patronizing laugh. You're making things complicated again. Why separate yourself? People will think our family's divided. I took a breath and replied, steady and clear. Mom, our family has been divided for a long time. I just stopped pretending not to notice. Then I thanked her for calling and hung up before she had the chance to answer. That night, I told Noah about the phone call. He stayed quiet for a long time before asking softly, Mom, if they don't come to my picnic, will you be sad? I shook my head. No. The only people who deserve to be there are the ones who truly respect you. Noah smiled faintly. Then I want that picnic to really be ours. The next morning, I started planning. I went to the Pflugerville city office to apply for a permit to host a small gathering at Lake Pflugerville Park. The young clerk behind the counter smiled as she helped me fill out the form. Community event? She asked. How many people are you expecting? About 50, I replied. And the name of the event? I paused, then wrote carefully on the line. Gratitude Picnic, Celebrating Growth and Community. Afterward, I called Coach Ramirez. Coach, Noah wants to invite the STEM group and the church kids to a picnic. He wants to thank everyone who's helped him. On the other end of the line, his voice was warm and proud. I'll take care of the BBQ, he said. The kids can bring their mini robots for a demo. We'll all be there, Mia. When I told Noah, his face lit up. Then I'll print a big yard sign so everyone passing by can see it. We sat side by side at the laptop, choosing a banner design. Bright orange letters appeared on the screen. Noah Lawson. Class of 2025, Gratitude and Growth. O-line. Underneath, I added a smaller line. We rise by lifting others. The following week was a blur of activity. I rented a small photo booth from a former UT student, ordered folding tables and picnic chairs, and bought balloons in white, orange, and silver. When Ethan heard about it, he immediately volunteered to take photos. I'm great at candid shots, he said with a grin. Don't hire anyone else. I laughed and thanked him, feeling something warm in my chest. Life was strange that way. The people who owed you nothing often showed up when you least expected, while those bound by blood stayed silent. That night, I sat down and made a guest list. The STEM team, the church teachers, Mrs. Wilson, my coworkers, our new neighbors, and Noah's close friends. The invitation message was simple. If you've ever believed in Noah, we just want to say thank you. Sunday, 3 p.m., Lake Pflugerville Park. Devon. A few days later, word reached my family. I could tell because Friday morning, another message from Vanessa appeared, even though I'd muted the group. You're really hosting a separate event just to compete? Mom's upset. Dad says you're dividing the family. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent a short, polite email teaching both my parents. The picnic is open to everyone. Anyone who respects boundaries and comes with genuine congratulations is welcome. Just one sentence. No anger, no defense. That afternoon, while Noah and I were out buying cake, he turned to me and asked, Mom, do you think they'll come? I smiled at him. I don't know, sweetheart, but I know who will the people who are truly happy to see you shine. The night before the picnic, we hung the banner, packed the BBQ supplies, and prepared salads and brownies. Ethan and Coach Ramirez both texted to confirm. Everything's ready. Ha! I sat at the table watching Noah go over his checklist of the robots the kids would present. His joy was pure, unguarded, the kind that comes from creating something with love, not fear. And for a moment, an image flashed in my mind, me as a little girl, arranging flowers and blowing balloons for Vanessa's birthday while everyone celebrated her. Now, the balloons, the banners, and the laughter were still there, only this time, they belonged to us. Before going to bed, I stepped out onto the back porch and looked up at the quiet Texas sky. Across the lake, I could see the faint lights glowing from the second-floor window of the old house, the place where I once lived, once believed I had to stay small to be loved. Now, I smiled softly, without bitterness. I understood something I never had before. Some people only know how to love by controlling because they've never learned what it means to love freely. But I had learned. And tomorrow, I would teach them that lesson not with words, but with peace. Sunday came, and the Texas sky looked freshly painted. The sun was warm but gentle, and the breeze drifting off Lake Pflugerville carried the scent of cut grass and barbecue smoke. Noah and I arrived early with the church kids and STEM team to set up. We spread red and white checkered tablecloths over the picnic tables, pitched small tents for shade, and arranged chairs around the cornhole games. Coach Ramirez showed up with a cooler full of burgers, hot dogs, and grilled corn. Mrs. Wilson brought her famous chana masala, which had everyone raving after the first bite. Country music played softly from a Bluetooth speaker, Luke Combs' voice weaving through laughter and the sound of children running. Noah, wearing an orange t-shirt with the STEM team logo, dashed between groups of kids, showing them how to steer the little robots along chalk-drawn tracks on the pavement. Each time one of the robots finished a lap, the kids cheered like they'd won a championship. I stood watching from a few feet away, my heart slowing with a kind of calm I hadn't felt in years, as if every hard season we'd endured had been traded in for this golden afternoon. Everything went more smoothly than I could have hoped. Neighbors, co-workers, church members, everyone came, each bringing a dish to share for the potluck. Ethan moved through the crowd with his camera, catching candid moments, Noah kneeling to help a little girl attach a battery pack, or standing beside the bright orange banner that read, "Noah Lawson, Gratitude Growth." I had planned to give a thank you speech later, but I realized I didn't need to. Gratitude was already everywhere in the helping hands, the easy smiles, the warmth that filled the air without expectation. But peace, I've learned, always has a limit. Around 3 p.m., as the sun began to dip, I heard the sharp click of high heels on concrete. I turned and my heart sank. Vanessa was walking toward us, with my parents just behind her. She wore a navy dress, sunglasses covering half her face, one hand holding Ava's and the other Jax's. All three adults looked wildly out of place, like they'd stepped out of a formal luncheon and accidentally wandered into someone else's joy. The crowd fell quiet for a moment. A few people nodded politely, unsure how to react. I stood up, forcing my tone to stay calm. "Hi, everyone. There's space over there if you'd like to sit." Vanessa gave a thin smile. "Oh, we're just stopping by for a bit. Heard there was some kind of ceremony happening, so we thought we'd see what all the fuss was about." The way she emphasized ceremony made it sound like a mockery. My mother glanced around, visibly uneasy when her eyes landed on the large banner with Noah's name stretched across the park. "Mia," she said quietly, "don't you think that sign is a little much? Is it really necessary?" I was about to respond when Noah appeared, sweat on his forehead but a bright smile on his face. "Hi, Aunt Vanessa, Grandma, Grandpa, you came?" he said, his voice pure and kind, untouched by resentment. Ava and Jax looked up at their cousin and, forgetting their mother's presence for a moment, ran forward. "Can we try the robots, Noah?" Ava asked, eyes wide. "Of course," Noah said, crouching to hand them the controllers. Within seconds, the park filled with laughter again. Ava squealed when her robot completed the course first, and Noah clapped for her, grinning. "Great job! You adjusted the angle perfectly," he said. And just like that, for one small, fragile moment, joy drowned out everything else. The scene should have been pure joy. But I saw Vanessa standing perfectly still, her face tight, her expression flickering between jealousy and disbelief. She watched her children laughing with Noah, and the sight seemed to shake something deep inside her. My mother placed a hand gently on her shoulder as if to calm her, but Vanessa brushed it off and suddenly strode toward the banner, her voice slicing through the warm afternoon air. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "What is this? Some kind of performance so Noah can steal the spotlight from my kids?" The park fell silent. The children froze mid-laughter, the music stopped in the background, and for a moment, even the wind seemed to pause. I felt my chest tighten, not from anger, but from the dull, familiar ache of déjà vu. Before I could say anything, my mother stepped in, her voice trembling. Vanessa, please, not so loud. Mia, just turn off the music and take down the banner. You're making everyone uncomfortable. I turned to her, keeping my voice steady. Mom, that banner isn't hurting anyone. It's just a thank you message. But you're making your sister feel excluded, she pressed. No, Mom. I said softly, meeting her eyes. She's not hurt because of the banner. She's hurt because Noah is happy and she doesn't know how to handle that. Vanessa's eyes flashed. She took another step forward and jabbed a finger toward Noah. That boy has been spoiled long enough. Everyone's always praising him while my kids work just as hard, but no one says a thing. Did you know Ava cried because all anyone talks about is Noah? Ava stopped in her tracks, looking up at her mother in confusion. I saw Noah take a small step back, unsure of what to do, his face caught between shock and empathy. The air grew thick, so heavy it felt like no one dared breathe. I knew that if I responded, the moment would explode into a full-blown scene. So instead, I gave Noah a quiet nod. He understood immediately. He walked up to the microphone that the church group had set up earlier, took a breath, and said clearly, "Can I say something?" Everyone turned toward him. His voice was calm, steady in a way that didn't belong to a 17-year-old boy. I just want to thank everyone for being here, he began. Some people might think this is a celebration